I didn't even mean to watch the footage. That's the part that still messes with me the most. There was no suspicion, no gut feeling, no late-night paranoia scrolling through his phone or checking receipts. Nothing like that. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't trying to catch him. I just needed to find out why my car battery kept draining overnight. It was a stupid, normal problem, the kind of thing that happens when life is boring and stable and predictable. Or at least, that's what I thought my life was. We had installed a dash cam in my car about 6 months earlier, after a minor fender bender in a grocery store parking lot. My husband, Daniel, insisted on it, said it was just smart these days. He handled the installation himself, tucked the wires neatly along the edges, made sure it recorded both front and interior footage. He even downloaded the app on both our phones so we could access clips if we ever needed them. I barely ever thought about it after that. But that morning, I was running late for work, already irritated, and when my car didn't start again, I snapped. I called Daniel, who was already at work, and he suggested maybe the camera was pulling power even when the car was off. Just check the footage settings, he said casually. Make sure it's not recording nonstop. So I sat there in the driver's seat, coffee getting cold in the cup holder, scrolling through the app. I found the section where it stored parked recordings, motion-triggered clips from when the car was off. I figured maybe it was picking up every little movement in the driveway and draining the battery. I tapped on the previous morning's clip. I don't know why I chose that one. Maybe because it was the first in the list, maybe because it felt random, maybe because something in me, some quiet instinct I didn't even know I had, chose it for me. The timestamp read 6:42 a.m. That alone made me frown. I usually left for work around 7:30. Daniel left earlier, around 6:15. So why would there be motion in my car at 6:42? I hit play. At first, it was just the empty interior of my car, slightly dim in the early morning light. The camera angle caught the steering wheel, the passenger seat, part of the windshield. Nothing unusual. Then the driver's door opened. Daniel got in. I remember blinking, like my eyes needed to adjust to something that didn't make sense. He wasn't supposed to be in my car. He had his own car, always had. He sat down, adjusted the seat slightly, like he'd done it before. That detail, small as it was, felt like a splinter in my brain. Then he reached over and unlocked the passenger door. I actually smiled for half a second. I thought, oh, maybe he forgot something and was meeting a coworker, or maybe he was doing me a favor, moving the car, something normal. Then the passenger door opened, and my sister got in, Emily. I didn't even react at first, not emotionally. It was more like my brain just froze, like a computer buffering. I stared at the screen, waiting for context to catch up. Emily lived with us. That part matters. She had moved in about 4 months earlier after breaking up with her boyfriend. It was supposed to be temporary. She was getting back on her feet, looking for a new job, figuring things out. I didn't hesitate when she asked. She's my younger sister. That's what you do. She and Daniel got along great. Honestly, better than I expected. They joked around, teased each other, had this easy banter. I thought it was a good thing. It made the house feel less tense during a time when Emily was clearly struggling. So seeing her get into my car with my husband at 6:42 in the morning shouldn't have felt like a punch to the chest. But it did. In the video, she closed the door and immediately smiled at him. Not a casual smile, not a good morning smile. It was warm, familiar, intimate. I paused the video. My hand was shaking, just slightly, enough that I noticed. No, I said out loud to myself, sitting alone in my car. No, this is nothing. I actually laughed. A nervous, stupid laugh. They're probably just going somewhere. Coffee, maybe he's helping her with something. That's what I told myself as I hit play again. Daniel started the car. They talked, but the audio wasn't great. I could see their mouths moving, see Emily laugh at something he said. She reached over and touched his arm. That's when my stomach dropped. It wasn't the touch itself. It was how natural it looked, like it wasn't new, like it had happened 100 times before. The clip ended as they backed out of the driveway. I sat there, staring at the screen, my coffee completely forgotten. Then I noticed something else. There were more clips. Same time range, same early morning motion triggers. My heart started pounding harder as I scrolled. 6:41 a.m., 6:43 a.m., 6:40 a.m. Different days. I tapped another one. Same thing. Daniel getting into my car, unlocking the passenger door, Emily getting in. This time she was holding a travel mug. She handed it to him like it was routine. He took a sip, made a face, and she laughed, nudging his shoulder. I felt something crack open inside my chest. I didn't cry, not yet. It was too early for that. The shock hadn't turned into pain yet. It was still in that numb, disbelieving stage where everything feels slightly unreal. I kept watching, clip after clip, different days, same pattern. Every single morning. He'd leave the house in his own car at 6:15, just like always. Then apparently he'd circle back on foot or something, I still don't know how, and get into my car around 6:40. Emily would come out a minute later, get in, and they'd drive off together. Every morning. Every single morning. I checked the dates. This had been going on for weeks, at least, maybe longer. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I felt stupid. That was the first real emotion that broke through the shock. Stupid. Because suddenly little things started lining up in my head. Things I hadn't questioned before. Emily always being up early lately, even though she didn't have a job yet. Daniel being unusually cheerful some mornings. The way they sometimes shared these quick glances across the room, like they were in on the same joke. I had noticed those things, but I never gave them meaning. Why would I? They were my husband and my sister. Those are the two people you're not supposed to doubt. I clicked on a clip from 3 days earlier. This one was different. They didn't drive off right away. Daniel got in, like usual. Emily followed. But instead of starting the car, he just sat there for a second. Then he turned toward her, and he kissed her. I stopped breathing. It wasn't a quick, accidental thing. It wasn't ambiguous. There was no way to explain it away. It was a real kiss. Slow, familiar, intentional. Her hand came up to his face like she'd done it before. I felt something hot and sharp shoot through my chest, like my body was finally catching up to what my eyes had been seeing for the past 10 minutes. I slammed my phone down on the passenger seat like it had burned me. No, I whispered, shaking my head. No, that's not, no. But it was. I picked the phone back up, because apparently I hate myself, and rewound it, watched it again, and again. Each time it felt worse, more real, more undeniable. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a relationship, a routine. A secret life happening right under my nose, in my own house, using my own car. I don't remember how long I sat there. Time got weird. It stretched and folded in on itself. At some point, I realized I was still supposed to go to work. I laughed again, this hollow, broken sound that didn't feel like it came from me. Work, emails, meetings, small talk about weekend plans. Meanwhile, my husband was kissing my sister in my car every morning like it was part of his daily commute. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to run inside the house and drag Emily out by her hair and demand answers. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there, staring at the screen, replaying the footage like if I watched it enough times, it would change. It didn't. Eventually, I noticed something else. The most recent clip. That morning. Timestamp, 6:44 a.m. My breath caught. They were probably still together. Right now. I hit play. The same sequence. Daniel gets in, unlocks the door, Emily gets in. But this time, before he starts the car, she leans over and says something. I can't hear it, but I can read the tone in her face. Serious, slightly tense. Daniel sighs, runs a hand through his hair. They talk for a minute. Then she says something else, and he smiles. Not a casual smile, a soft one, the kind he used to give me. Then he reaches over, tucks a strand of her hair behind her ear, and kisses her again. I felt it this time. Not shock, not confusion. Pain. Real physical pain, like my chest was being crushed from the inside. Because in that moment, watching that stupid, grainy footage on my phone, I realized something that hurt even more than the betrayal itself. This wasn't new for them, but it was new for me. I was the only one who didn't know, the only one still living in the version of our life that didn't exist anymore. And I had no idea what I was going to do next. I didn't go to work that day. I sat in my car for another 20 minutes after the last clip ended, just staring at my own reflection in the dark screen of my phone like I didn't recognize the person looking back. My brain kept trying to reorganize reality into something that made sense, but every version I came up with collapsed under the same truth. My husband and my sister were sleeping together, and they'd been doing it right in front of me every single day. Eventually, my body started moving before my thoughts caught up. I grabbed my bag, got out of the car, and walked back into the house like I'd just forgotten something. Emily was in the kitchen. She was standing at the counter, wearing one of my oversized sweatshirts, her hair still slightly damp like she'd just showered. There was a mug in her hand, and she looked up when she heard me come in. "Oh, didn't you leave already?" she asked, casual, normal, like nothing in the world was wrong. I studied her face, really studied it. I was looking for something. Guilt? Nerves? Anything that would confirm what I had just seen. but she looked fine, calm, maybe a little tired, but nothing unusual. It made something inside me twist even tighter. "My car wouldn't start," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. She frowned slightly. "Again? That's weird." "Yeah, weird." I walked further into the kitchen, setting my bag down slowly, like any sudden movement might crack whatever thin layer of control I had left. "You were up early," I said. It came out more pointed than I intended. She shrugged, taking a sip from her mug. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." I nodded. "Been happening a lot lately?" Another shrug. "Kind of." The lies were so easy for her. That's what hit me the hardest in that moment. She wasn't stumbling over her words or avoiding eye contact. She was just talking, like we were having any normal morning conversation. Meanwhile, I had footage burned into my brain of her kissing my husband less than an hour ago. I wanted to ask her right then. Just drop it on the table, watch her face change, force the truth out into the open. But something held me back. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was fear of what would happen once I said it out loud. Or maybe it was the realization that I didn't know the full story yet, and if I confronted them too soon, they'd just lie better. So instead, I played along. "I might call in today," I said, grabbing a glass and filling it with water just to give my hands something to do. "Try to figure out what's wrong with the car." "Yeah, you should," she said. "No point stressing about it." No point stressing. I almost laughed again, but I swallowed it. We stood there in silence for a few seconds, and I could feel my heart beating in my throat. Every second around her felt wrong now, contaminated, like the air between us had changed and I was the only one who noticed. "I'm gonna go lie down for a bit," I said. She nodded. "Okay." I turned and walked out of the kitchen, down the hallway, and into my bedroom. Our bedroom. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, finally letting my face drop. My hands were shaking again, worse this time. My entire body felt like it was buzzing, like I had too much adrenaline and nowhere to put it. I looked at the bed. Unmade. Sheets slightly tangled from that morning. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to sit down. How long? That question kept repeating in my head. How long had this been happening in this room? In this house? How many times had I been just a wall away while they were sneaking around like this? I grabbed my phone again. The dashcam app was still open. There were more clips I hadn't watched yet. Part of me didn't want to see them. I already knew enough. But another part, stronger, darker, needed to know everything. Needed to see the full extent of it, no matter how much it hurt. So I kept going. I went back through the dates, further this time. 2 weeks ago. 3. 4. The pattern didn't change. Every morning, same routine. But the earlier clips were different. Less relaxed, more cautious. In one of them, Emily looked around nervously before getting into the car, like she was afraid someone might see. In another, Daniel checked his phone multiple times before unlocking the door, like he was waiting for the right moment. It looked like the beginning of something. The early stages. And then, as the days went on, they got more comfortable, more careless. The touches lingered longer. The smiles got softer. The space between them disappeared. I found one clip from about 3 weeks ago where they didn't even drive off right away. They just sat there, talking, laughing quietly, like they were sharing some private world that I wasn't part of. At one point, Emily rested her head on his shoulder. He didn't move. He just let her. I felt my chest tighten again, but this time it came with something new. Anger. Hot, sharp, rising fast. Because this wasn't just physical. It wasn't just a mistake or some impulsive thing that got out of hand. This was emotional. Intentional. They liked this. They were choosing this. Every single day. I exited the app and threw my phone onto the bed. I couldn't sit there anymore. I stood up and started pacing the room, running my hands through my hair, trying to think clearly. Okay. What do I do? Confront Daniel? Confront Emily? Kick her out? Call someone? My mind jumped from one option to another, none of them feeling right, all of them feeling like they would explode my life in ways I wasn't ready for yet. Then something else hit me.
Where were they going?
Every morning, they got into my car and drove off together. But where? Daniel already had a job, a normal schedule, a normal commute. Emily didn't have a job. So what the hell were they doing for that hour, 2 hours, however long they were gone before coming back like nothing happened? That question dug into me deeper than I expected, because it meant there was more. More than just what I'd seen. More than just a few kisses in the front seat. I grabbed my phone again and opened the app, this time looking for longer clips, ones that might show when the car came back. It took a minute, but I found one. Timestamp, 8:12 a.m. The car pulled back into the driveway. My stomach dropped as I hit play. Daniel was driving. Emily was in the passenger seat. They looked different, closer. Her hand was resting on his thigh, not casually, possessively, like it belonged there. He parked the car but didn't turn it off right away. They said something to each other, both of them smiling in that quiet, knowing way that people do when they've just shared something intimate. Then she leaned over and kissed him again, slower this time, deeper. I looked away, but it didn't help. The image was already in my head. When I forced myself to look back, she was pulling away, fixing her hair in the mirror like she needed to look presentable before going back inside, before facing me, before sitting across from me at the kitchen table and pretending none of this existed. I paused the video right there. My hand was steady now. Too steady. That kind of calm that comes right before something breaks. Because now I knew. They weren't just sneaking around. They were leaving together, spending time together, coming back together. This was a full-blown relationship, and they thought they were getting away with it. Something shifted in me right then. The shock was gone. The confusion too. All that was left was this cold, focused clarity. They had been lying to me, both of them, every single day, smiling at me, talking to me, living with me, while building something behind my back. And the worst part? They thought I was too blind to ever find out. I picked up my phone again and stared at the screen, my reflection faintly visible over the paused image of them in my car. "You have no idea," I whispered, because in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. I wasn't going to scream or cry or give them the chance to twist the story or deny anything. No, I was going to watch. I was going to learn everything. How long, where they went, what they said, how far this actually went. And then, when I had all of it, every detail, every lie, every moment they thought was hidden, I was going to decide exactly how to destroy them. That first day changed something in me in a way I didn't fully understand until later. I didn't confront them. I didn't cry in front of them. I didn't even raise my voice. By the time Daniel got home that evening, I had already built a version of myself that could sit across from him at the dinner table and ask about his day like nothing had happened. And he played his part perfectly. "Long day," he said, loosening his tie as he walked into the kitchen. Traffic was a nightmare. I nodded, stirring pasta on the stove. "Yeah, that sucks." Emily was sitting at the counter, scrolling through her phone, completely at ease. She glanced up at him and smiled. That same smile, the one I'd seen in the footage. I felt it like a needle under my skin, but I didn't react. "Did you figure out the car?" Daniel asked me. "Not yet," I said. "I might take it in tomorrow." He nodded like that made total sense, like he hadn't been driving it himself just hours earlier. The level of deception was almost impressive. We ate dinner together, the three of us, like a normal family. They laughed at the same stupid things, shared little looks. Nothing obvious enough that anyone else would question it. But now that I knew, it was everywhere. Every glance lingered a second too long. Every joke between them had an undercurrent I hadn't noticed before. And I just sat there, quietly observing, cataloging everything. It became a game almost immediately. Not a fun one, not something I enjoyed, but something I needed. I started paying attention to details I'd never cared about before. What time Daniel actually left in the morning, how long Emily stayed in her room before coming out, whether their phones were face up or face down, the tone in their voices when they spoke to each other versus when they spoke to me. Patterns started forming fast. Daniel would leave the house at 6:15, like always. I'd hear his car start, the garage door open, everything normal. Then, about 25 minutes later, Emily would suddenly decide to get up, even on days she claimed she barely slept. She'd move around quietly like she didn't want to wake me. Except I was awake now, every single morning, listening. Then she'd slip out, and if I checked the app, right on cue, there they were. It was so consistent it made me feel sick. By the third day, I started taking screenshots,
Every clip, every kiss, every touch. I didn't even fully know why at first. It just felt important to have proof, something solid, something they couldn't twist or deny later. By the 5th day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed them. I waited until Daniel left, then counted the minutes, watched Emily leave the house from the bedroom window like I was watching a stranger. Then I grabbed my keys, got into his car because I knew exactly where mine would be, and drove. My hands were shaking as I pulled out of the neighborhood, but my mind was sharp, focused. I knew the general direction they went based on earlier footage. It didn't take long to spot my car. They were about 3 cars ahead of me at a stoplight. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers hurt, staring at the back of my own vehicle like it belonged to someone else. The light turned green. They drove. I followed. They didn't go toward Daniel's office. They didn't go anywhere near it. Instead, they turned off onto a quieter road, then another, eventually pulling into the parking lot of a small, older apartment complex on the edge of town. My stomach dropped. I slowed down, keeping my distance as they parked near the far end of the lot. I parked across the street, partially hidden by a row of trees, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I watched them get out of my car. Daniel walked around to Emily's side like it was second nature. She smiled up at him, said something I couldn't hear. Then he kissed her, out in the open, in broad daylight, like they didn't have a care in the world, like they weren't destroying someone's life, my life. I felt something inside me go cold, not explosive, not dramatic, just cold. They walked toward one of the buildings together, close enough that their shoulders brushed. He reached for her hand halfway there, and she let him take it, like it belonged to him. They disappeared inside. I sat there for a long time, minutes, maybe longer. I honestly don't know. I thought I might cry. I thought maybe seeing it in person would break me in some visible way. But it didn't. If anything, it solidified something. This wasn't confusion anymore. It wasn't even just betrayal. It was clarity. They had a place, a routine, a relationship that existed outside of me completely.
And they were comfortable in it. That's what kept repeating in my head. Comfortable. I eventually started the car again and drove home. The silence in the house when I got back felt heavier than it ever had before. Their absence filled it. I walked into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall. I tried to picture all the moments leading up to this, tried to find the exact point where things shifted, where my marriage stopped being what I thought it was. But there wasn't just one moment. There were hundreds of tiny ones I had ignored, and now they had turned into this. By the time they came back that morning, I was ready, not to confront them, but to play my role better. Emily walked in first, acting like she had just gone out for coffee or a walk or something equally harmless. "Hey," she said, setting her bag down. "Hey," I replied, barely looking up from my phone. A few minutes later, Daniel came through the door, keys in hand, like he had just gotten home from work. "Forgot something earlier," he said casually. I nodded. "What'd you forget?" "My charger." That was it. That was the entire exchange, and he believed it. They both did. That's when I realized something else. They weren't just lying. They were underestimating me, completely. They thought I was oblivious, comfortable, predictable, that I'd never questioned the routine we'd built, and that gave me an advantage. Over the next few days, I leaned into it. I acted normal, even warmer than usual. I laughed more, engaged more. I made it easier for them to relax around me, and they did. They got sloppier, more open with their body language, less careful about timing. One night, I caught them exchanging a look right in front of me, one of those quiet, loaded glances that says everything without words. They didn't even realize I saw it, but I did, and I stored it away with everything else, because at this point, I wasn't just gathering evidence. I was building something, a moment, a reveal, something they wouldn't see coming. And the more I watched them, the more I understood exactly how to do it. I learned which mornings they went to that apartment, which days they stayed longer, which nights they seemed more distracted at dinner, like they were replaying something in their heads that had nothing to do with me. It was like mapping out a secret life that existed parallel to mine, and every detail made the final picture clearer. By the end of the week, I knew 2 things for sure. First, this wasn't ending anytime soon on its own. And second, they had absolutely no idea that I was already 10 steps ahead of them. By the second week, I wasn't even pretending anymore, not in my own head at least. Outwardly, I was still the same. I cooked dinner, I asked about their days, I I sat on the couch next to Daniel at night like nothing had changed, like I didn't know exactly where he'd been that morning, whose hands had been on him, whose lips he'd been kissing before coming home to me. But inside, something had shifted permanently. It wasn't just anger anymore. Anger burns hot and fast. This was something colder, quieter, more controlled. It was patience and planning. Because the more I watched them, the more I realized something important. They weren't careful because they didn't think they needed to be. Their entire secret depended on me staying exactly who I had always been, trusting, predictable, unaware. So I stayed that version of myself, and I let them dig deeper. I kept collecting everything, the footage, the screenshots, the timestamps. I started organizing it, dates, times, patterns, morning arrivals, departure gaps, how long they stayed at the apartment, when they came back, what their moods were like afterward. I even started writing things down, not in some dramatic journal way, just facts. Monday, 6:43 a.m., left together, returned 8:11, laughing when they got back. Wednesday, 6:41 a.m., argument in the car before leaving. She looked annoyed. He kissed her anyway. Friday, stayed longer, returned after 9. It became clinical, detached, like I was studying strangers instead of my own husband and my own sister. And maybe that's what I needed to do to survive it. The moment everything locked into place happened on a Thursday night. We were sitting in the living room. Some random show was playing on the TV, something none of us were really paying attention to. Emily was on one end of the couch, curled up under a blanket. Daniel was next to me, his arm resting along the back of the couch behind my shoulders. At some point, I got up and said I was going to grab a drink. I didn't go to the kitchen right away. I paused just out of sight in the hallway, and I waited. It only took a few seconds. Tomorrow morning? Emily's voice, low but clear enough. A pause. Yeah, Daniel replied quietly. You'll text me? Like always. Another pause. Then she said, softer. I hate when we can't talk during the day. His voice dropped even lower. I know. Me too. Silence. Then the faint sound of movement. I leaned just slightly, enough to see into the room. He had leaned toward her. Not enough to be obvious if someone walked in, but enough. Enough that if I hadn't known, I might have missed it. But I didn't miss it. Not anymore. I stepped back before they could see me, grabbed a glass from the kitchen, and came back in like nothing had happened. That was the moment I knew I had everything I needed. Not just proof. Timing. Because the next morning was Friday. And Friday, according to everything I tracked, was their longest day at the apartment. If I was going to do this, it had to be then. I barely slept that night. Not because I was upset, because I was focused. Every detail had to be right. When my alarm went off, I turned it off immediately and lay still, listening. 6:15, right on time. I heard Daniel get up. The usual routine. Shower, coffee, keys. The sound of the garage door opening. His car leaving. Same as always. I waited. 25 minutes. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. Then I heard Emily's door open. Soft footsteps down the hallway. The front door. Silence. I counted to 30. Then I got up. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I moved calmly, deliberately, grabbing my phone, my keys, everything I needed. I got into Daniel's car this time, not mine. I knew exactly where they were going. The drive felt longer than it had before, even though I knew the route now. My heart was steady, though. No shaking, no hesitation, just clarity. When I pulled up across the street from the apartment complex, their car, my car, was already there, parked in the same spot. I sat there for a moment, staring at it. Then I got out. The air was cool, quiet, normal, like nothing significant was happening. I walked across the street, into the lot, straight toward the building I had watched them enter days before. Every step felt surreal, like I was walking into someone else's life. I reached the door, paused for just a second, then I opened it. The hallway smelled faintly like old carpet and cheap air freshener. I already knew which unit it was. I'd seen them walk into it, apartment 204. I walked up the stairs. Each step echoed louder than it should have. By the time I reached the door, my hand was steady. I didn't knock right away. I listened. Muffled voices inside. Laughter. That soft, familiar tone I had heard in the car footage, in the living room, everywhere. I knocked. Everything inside went quiet.
A beat. Then movement. Footsteps. The sound of a lock turning. The door opened. And there he was. Daniel. Standing there in a t-shirt and jeans, like this was just another normal morning. Except it wasn't. Because I was standing in front of him. For the first time since all of this started, his face changed. Not confusion, recognition, then panic. "What are you?" he started. I didn't let him finish. I stepped forward, pushing the door open wider. Emily was behind him, standing in the living room. She froze when she saw me. For a second, nobody said anything. The three of us just stood there, the truth finally in the open, thick and undeniable. I looked at them. Really looked. Not through a screen, not through a lens, right there, together, in their space. I've seen everything, I said. My voice didn't shake. That seemed to hit them harder than anything. Daniel's mouth opened slightly, like he was trying to find words that didn't exist. Emily looked like she'd stopped breathing. How long? I asked. Neither of them answered. How long? I repeated, louder this time. A few months, Daniel said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. A few months. I nodded slowly. Every morning? I asked. Silence. That's not even the part that bothers me the most, I said, and that was the truth. Because it wasn't just the cheating, it was the routine, the planning, the way they built an entire relationship while sitting across from me at dinner every night. I have everything, I continued. The footage, the times, the dates. I followed you. I know about this place. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing once, like he could walk his way out of this. Please, just let's talk about this, he said. I actually laughed. Not hysterically, just tired. We're past talking. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I've already sent everything, I said. That stopped him. What? He asked. To a lawyer, I said, and a copy to your boss. His face went pale. And Mom and Dad, I added, looking straight at Emily. That's when she broke. Why would you do that? She whispered. I held her gaze. Because you did this in my house, with my husband, every single day. Neither of them had a response to that. There wasn't one. I stepped back toward the door. This is over, I said, looking at Daniel. Everything. Then at Emily. And you're out of my life. I didn't wait for them to respond. Didn't wait for apologies or excuses or anything else they might try to throw at me. I turned and walked out, down the stairs, out into the parking lot. The air hit differently this time. Sharper, cleaner. I got into the car and sat there for a moment, hands resting on the wheel. And for the first time since I hit play on that first video, I felt something other than shock or anger or pain. Relief. Not because it didn't hurt anymore, but because it was done. No more guessing, no more pretending, no more living in a version of my life that wasn't real. They had their secret, and now they had to live with it out in the open, without me. And I drove away without looking back.